one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I want to thank everybody for coming. And Jill is stuck on a plane somewhere, planes, trains, automobile. So she can't be here tonight. So we do not have an agenda adjustment line. So going down to old business, point 1, Katie and Sam have a presentation with the information that we tasked them with last week to get us to the numbers we suggested. So I'll leave it to them.
Okay. All right. So, thank you, Robbie.
Yep.
And Jill and I did speak yesterday on the phone, so she does know what our reduction list is looking like. I want to say, first of all, this took a very collaborative, hard work to really meet what you've asked. You know, you asked us to really look it over, try as hard as you can not to look at positions, especially teaching positions. And so I really want to give kudos, a shout out to the administrative team, the departments, the directors. Everyone really took what you asked very seriously. I also want people to know that you can work a budget any way you need to work it. Doesn't make it right. Okay? So you asked us to hit a number, we're going to hit those numbers. But it's not easy, and it does have impact. Because we did a lot of that in our first proposed budget. So we're now at the bone with what we're going to show reductions. So will parents see that impact of what we're putting up here, which you're going to see? No, because you know what schools do a great job of? They do a great job of educating students, no matter what the resources are, because that's what we do. We open September, we provide a quality education, we work really hard to do that, but it doesn't mean that these things that we're recommending aren't important, because they are very important. So I just want to be clear on that, because you're going to say, oh, well, why didn't they do that before? We did do it before. You want a number met, we're meeting the number, okay? So, but I do take this very seriously. It's hard discussions. It's not easy to talk about because it impacts people. It impacts programming, it impacts our facilities, and I do so appreciate everyone really, you know, sharpening those pencils and thinking, what can we do? So I'm going to start by saying, doing a little review, because sometimes we forget this budget already had reductions to it when it came in. So I'm just reminding folks that in the proposed superintendent's budget, there was 3 elementary positions, and what you approved, so this is what you approved, was 3 elementary positions, 2 positions that were currently filled, and 1 unfilled position. And those those folks have new positions, and so we've made those moves. There are 2, we reduced 2 open ed tech positions, which left 3 positions still unfilled. We riffed a kitchen worker position, so a person was riffed. We also did a huge increase to out-of-district tuition, because we had been really budgeting on our attendance patterns. So when we looked at our attendance, that's what we had planned for, and then as I have shared with you, we now have to budget 100% attendance. The technology department really looked at the needs of the department, and so looking at all the positions, classifying a position to a network specialist, looking at a half-time administrative position, and then we had a reduction of a technician position, which ended up being a retirement. So we will continue with 3 technicians with 1 position in the ARP funds. Transportation, so the Director of Operations looked at both of those budgets, and reduce one of the 3 unfilled bus positions to help support the creation of a half-time administrative assistant so that the tech department and the director of operations would have administrative support, assistant support, and also the central office had a reception position that has not been budgeted, so we saw it as an opportunity to support all the positions at central office. The maintenance budget was reduced initially over $300,000. As you remember, John moved a lot of the big requests to a capital improvement plan. So wanting to show all of you and the public, there are a lot of needs at our buildings, and we are having trouble budgeting that and affording that. So we're looking at capital improvement. We looked at school revolving renovation funds. So looking at ways to how are we going to maintain our facilities. You have in the budget a feasibility study to help continue those conversations around can we afford to run 5 buildings. In the positions that remain in ARP funds is the Sabatis primary nurse, the Oak Hill Middle School assistant principal, the Oak Hill Middle School dean of students, a technology technician, and an intervention, which I believe is really the study hall monitor position. And so the total budget coming in was $22,453,164.82. We were up 5.46%. You asked to show $250,000 reduction, which would put us at 4.28% increase, and a $500,000 reduction, which would put us at 3.11%. So that's just kind of giving you a summary of where we were in our. So we're going to pass out what I just went over, and you'll see what I'm going to show on the screen is at the end of your packet. Oh, did you run out of ink? Oh, geez, okay.
Can you see the last page, okay?
All right, so this is, your last page is what I'm going through right now. So part of our discussions were priority. So priority 1 would be, okay, as we shoot for the 250,000, we know, okay, these lines we could reduce as priority 1. Could we survive is priority 1. Priority 2 in yellow is we could survive, but it's a little bit of a pinch, right? It's like, we could survive, but it's not ideal. In red is heavy pinch, okay? And there are 2 items there in red as we go through. So I'm going to just take us right down so you have a full picture of everything and then open it up for conversation. So we start at the top, which is workman's comp, which is, as Sam went through the lines again, we got the bill for workers' comp. So a lot of things happen after budget development and budget approval that have helped us to a degree. So workman's comp's 1, so you see a reduction there of 20,000. Then you get into the fuel lines. So John really worked hard. I mean, I think he called the town managers dozens of times to say, we need to lock in. We need to lock in, because we do work with the towns about our big contract for fuel. So he had budgeted $3.58 per gallon, and it came in, they locked in at $2.78 a gallon. So those lines were reduced to reflect that. Now, remember, when these things happen, you say, wow, okay, there we could have reduced. Well, we want things like that to happen now and then, because if we have emergencies or things we unanticipate, we have dollars to help support it. As I keep reducing, that is not going to be there. okay? It's not going to be, well, we had a student move in that needs this, this, and this. Well, we have to find it, right? We have additional students going out of district placement. We have to find it. We have a boiler go down suddenly, or a system go, or anything like that. We have to fund that. So, yes, it helped reduce to meet our goal, but a lot of the time when that happens, we say, oh, okay, that gives us a little breather, just in case. So I want to make that clear. Just like in all of our budgets, we plan for the unexpected. The next group, so we're going down from trying to stay as far away from the school and classrooms. We went into equipment. So as the finance committee knows, we've been looking a lot at the maintenance lines. And so we talked to John about what can we order right now. We have 2 days before it's June 30th. And so what was in your proposed budget that we can order out? So those are the items. So what you saw there is the reduction in equipment line, and those things are being ordered now. Then we get to the maintenance supply lines. So again, we looked at what's been our pattern of spending, patterns of needs. Can we continue to have our custodial staff have what they need to clean our buildings and maintain our buildings? And so we looked at reducing those. So you can see by each school how much was reduced. So we've done maintenance equipment, now we've done maintenance supplies, and now we're doing maintenance repair. So in the repair, remember the Verkada card key? Okay, so our hope was to get a grant. So we're not getting the grant this year. We are well lined up, to be prepared for next year's grant cycle. And so what was budgeted needed that grant funds. So we had hoped to keep it in, maybe think, okay, could we do one school? Could we do 2 schools, okay, without the grant funds? So instead, when you look at the priorities of all the needs in our maintenance repair, it can be deferred. You know, our schools are safe, they're locked, we're doing our safety. So this is deferred. The other things you'll see after that is beyond Verkada. So each building, he reduced repair and maintenance. So he's going to have to look at, okay, how are we going to get some of these potholes repaired, cutting some of the dead trees. There was looking at the middle school, the high school front entrance signs and awning, maybe some paint. So, he does his best to project what those costs are by talking to vendors. And so with these reductions, he's going to have to, as he always does, look creatively and working with vendors to do what we need as priority items. So that's repairs. Central office supplies, we looked at our needs at central office and reduced the supply lines, just like the schools did. In talking to athletic director Brian Daniels about uniforms, so there's a cycle for uniform replacement for new uniforms, but as we looked at each department contributing to help us meet our directive, we are going to defer the uniforms. So what we asked for is which uniform would be a priority 1 and which uniforms would be a priority 2. So you'll see in priority 1 is soccer uniforms. So those would be deferred. Then the principals looked at their principal accounts and they trimmed down, okay, what could we do different with supplies? How about our own professional development? We see that we want to contribute to this reduction because it's important to continue to support those needs in the classroom supplies. So they were asked to please look at that, and they did that and took that very seriously. So you'll see in the principal's office lines those reductions. Then you will see the tech department looked at their lines about how can they be creative and what can be deferred. So PD, They'll look at different ways they can give PD that doesn't have a cost to it. A lot of the DOEs offer things, grants, so that department will be looking at ways to provide that PD and training. And then there's postponements of upgrades to servers. So in looking to defer some things, just like maintenance, just like other departments, it's deferring. Then guidance. So as everyone looked at their lines, SPS worked with guidance around what could they have reductions to. Also their PD and professional development. So you'll see lines for that. And remember all this list now. Now we're getting new instructional supplies for the classroom, right? So we've done principal's office, we've done central office, we've done maintenance. Now we're going to say, well, let's look at instructional equipment and supplies. What can we defer? What can we look at differently? Or what supplies can we use? Share center, things like that. So you'll see that reduction. That was $250,647.26. Okay, so see that black line? That's where we meet the 250. So we need to, how do we get to the 586? This is what we're proposing. So the next one was tuition. So we did a survey to see what's the anticipated course, what are teachers thinking about courses. We know we have some people on conditional certificates. We know some people are in their master's programs. And so we put that out there, and it was about close to $65,000. And we currently budget $25,000. So we raised it to $75,000. So we are proposing to reduce it to $25,000, which leaves $50,000. So there'll be people that will be told no. They may have to defer their coursework. But we're going to, we got to look at priorities of that as well. So it's going to be much more scrutinized about, are these folks in programs? Have they been going regularly? Do they need a conditional? What are they doing with a conditional certificate? So it's going to be prioritizing that. We have an open ELL ed tech, which is your English language learners. And currently we have an open position. We have an individual that is an ELL ed tech at the high school. And just like every position, where is the need? And the need is at Sabatis Primary. So that position would be transferred to SPS, and we would not fill. Notice it's in yellow. Okay. Then we have that uniform, which is the field hockey uniforms. And Brian's going to work with how do we maybe work with the seamstress to help with those uniforms so that our athletes have uniforms that fit for our athletes. Then we have an open special ed tech at Oak Hill Middle School. So when we reviewed ed tech positions, there was a little confusion on which position was in general fund and which were not. And so even with this reduction, it still leaves 3 ed tech positions open. 1 at the high school and 2 at the middle school. So that's there. You can see it's in yellow. This one, we had the nurse at Libby Tozier resign. And so so everybody understands that when we hit COVID and we had our funds, we committed ARP funds to fund the nurse at SPS so that every school had a nurse because of COVID and all the contact tracing and working with families around that. So what happens is we have to say to ourselves, eventually that position is going to be gone. So we're taking the SPS position and we're putting it in the general fund. So we will not have a nurse position in the ARP funds. It's getting moved into general fund. This will mean that the Carrie Ricker nurse position will cover both Libby Tozier and Carrie Ricker, which it had done pre-COVID. what the nurse at Carrie Ricker and Dustin Miles, principal, are working on is making sure those health plans, what are those health plans look like for us? How can that nurse's schedule meet those health plans? And working as a team of nurses to make sure we're covering all those needs. What it did is open funds to pull back the technology. So we had asked this year to pull the technology items into general fund. Well, instead, we're going to push it back into ARP for one more year. So you're going to keep hearing that word, deferred, right? One more year and reduce the nurse position. Okay? So that was a savings of $82,000. Then that administrative assistant position that was created out of the technology department being creative about, okay, how do I best use my staff and to meet the needs of the department? And the same with the director of operations saying, okay, how do I look at some reductions in order to have an administrative assistant position be a full-time position? We've reduced that position by a half. So the half-time position would be assigned to the director of operations to help support the work. What our director of operations does a little differently perhaps than the past director of operations is manage different systems that have been put in place, like TransFinder, right, for transportation. Also safety, runs the safety committee and is redoing plans. Looking for grants, writing grants, working with the vendors. So doing a lot in how to save money for the district. Like we're going to be back talking to you about electric buses, another way to save money. So if you want something done well to help make the district more efficient, handle those maintenance repair, and run the transportation department, he needs support. Okay? Watching what he has to do on a daily basis, it's a lot. Because we've raised the expectation for that position. That's why it's in priority red. Okay. And the last one, which was on here before, was the high school science position. I want to explain why that was on originally. So we looked at reducing elementary positions, and so we looked at secondary positions. And when you look at the science department position and you look at the other departments at the high school, the social studies department has 4 teachers, which is a requirement of 3 years for our students. The science department has 5 teachers. So aligning that department to mirror the social studies department, it was proposed to bring that department to 4. In looking at class sizes for that department, they're running about 1 to 12 and 1 to 14 in their freshmen. That was current. That was current. So we have our freshmen take a freshman science, and that was running about 1 in 14. That's a larger class than the freshman class coming up. Then in sophomore, junior years, they're looking at their biology, looking at their chemistry. They're also looking at other science classes they can take to meet that 3rd year. So some take anatomy and physiology. Some take, what's the one, infectious disease. There's some different ones what? Physics. So there are other things. So in looking at class sizes and the way they could consolidate their courses, I understand that it's important. It's why it's in 3. It's very important. Every teaching position is important. And we have to look at when there's an opportunity, when there's an open position, we have to look at these kind of conversations. Okay. So that is the list. And it brings us to $586,793.54. Robbie.
All right, so you've seen the list. Any discussion on it?
I guess I have a question on the math.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that below the black line is about 330,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 250, and we were looking for 500. That's another 250. this is 330, that's another 80,000 above the target number.
Yes.
So I guess my question is kind of, if you've identified $80,000 below the line, then what was requested, what items would go back in to get to the 500 and not 580?
The reason for doing that is for you to see a bigger picture, and then you all to have conversation about where you want to be and what, I've laid out our priorities, and so you have the option to put in the science position, and then we talk about how do we make up the difference, which is about $20,000 difference. You have, if you look at that below that line, you have the tuition line, you have the ed tech, EL ed tech, the uniforms, the special ed position, the nurse, although that, to me, it would be hard to do because then we're just rearranging things. You have the administrative assistant position at halftime, and then you have the science position. So I was opening it for conversation around what you all want to look at. If you look at the science position, we can talk about how to mitigate the $20,000.
Well, I've always been a strong proponent of having a nurse in every building because emergencies come up, and having one in January with a snowstorm and ice between Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozer, the nurse in the wrong building, it's tough to get them there in a timely manner. So you say that's just kind of moving stuff around, but it's a position that's listed here at 82.
Right.
Which is real close to the number over 500 if we're looking at 500.
Right.
So, as I go down here, I mean, there's a lot of things that, a lot of things could go wrong with any one of these lists that could put us in a bind. But when I look down at, of course, you might remember, I think I voted against adding a science teacher because I thought they had enough. Not that I may have anything against science teachers, but in this particular case, my druthers would be to see to fund the nursing position and have a nurse in every building.
Okay. That's why you're having the conversations.
And then that's a matter of whether we really want to look at the 500 number or we want to stay with the 250. What do we feel comfortable going back to the voters with? I'm sure hopefully, we'll get some constructive feedback from the community members if they get this information, so that will help us guide our decision on what's the best number to take to the budget meeting, and then see how it floats. Does this put did this put that money cut from the special ed back in?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Katie, what science programs would we not have if that science position goes away?
Marco did work on what the schedule, so Marco, I know you're here. Do you want to talk about what you worked on for schedule? Why don't you come up to the mic?
Sure.
Just to put together a brief list of the impact, basically cutting the science position would have. And so we start with the BAR program because this specific position has 3 sections of freshman science assigned to it currently. And so that would remove science teachers from that BAR team. We're required by BAR to have 3 out of 4 content or core content teachers a part of that program, and so that would reduce it from 4 to 3. And that would affect essentially the entirety of the freshman class, just because you wouldn't have a science teacher a part of that program. We'd have to look at absorbing our investigations in biology courses, and I don't know if you guys recall those, but those are for students that need additional support with the content, and so that would affect roughly 20 students, and they would be absorbed into current biology sections that we have, and would rise. Sorry, go ahead.
So that would probably impact those learners because they wouldn't have the support to go on to another,
Not
go
necessarily.
into a regular class?
I mean, yes and no, Robbie, and I say that because, we may have students that have IEPs
Right,
that are
yeah.
required to have support, and so we would have ed techs assigned to those courses. And so they would get the support. Would it be consistent and across the board at all times? I can't guarantee that. It really comes down to the schedule and how it works out.
Yeah.
And so just in putting those into the biology courses, it would rise the number of students to approximately 20 students per sections from, as Katie said, 12 to 15 students that we have. We'd have to cancel some elective courses, infectious diseases and natural disasters. Right now, infectious diseases would be offered this fall. That's 7 students that would be affected by that. Natural disasters, we haven't opened that up for offerings yet because that would be offered in the spring.
Yeah.
We would look at anatomy and physiology courses and physics courses. Sections would be reduced from 2 sections to 1 to allow for further course offerings, course sections. So with absorbing more students, we're maybe to make more sections of another required course or another course that we have. So we need to look at consolidating others to make that happen. And so anatomy and physiology courses and physics courses would need to be reduced from 2 sections to 1. Just to accommodate that, and that's approximately 33 students that would be affected by that change. And I say that only because, kids have specific schedules that they want to get,
Yeah.
but we only have so many offerings. So if you have a singleton, it makes it really difficult for all the kids to get what they're looking for. And the potential of impacts of other electives depending on the section number, specifically computer science and robotics, which is approximately 15 students. So really, it's a ripple effect is what it comes down to, and I think that you guys all understand that, but at least gives you some approximate numbers in the impact.
We need to hear it, though.
Yeah, sure, of course,
Thank you.
of course.
Anybody else got questions?
More of a wonder. Is there possibility of having the Libby Tozier nurse position half-time? So a half-time nurse that's only there instead of 40 hours. I don't know what the contract hours are, but
Thank you, Mark.
I know it might be difficult to find somebody. Like, that's always
Mhm.
the challenge, but I wonder if that could be a compromise
It's a possibility.
or something to look into.
Mhm.
Is that the lowest that a nurse would make, that 82,000?
So that 82,000 represents the 72,000 of the tech that was moved back and $10,000 savings from the position going from ARP into general fund. So it's not a person's, that is not the salary and
That's
benefits.
just a saving.
That's just,
Right, so don't say, like, a halftime wouldn't be 41, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what would a nurse come in at about?
Well, I mean, you could say between probably 85 and 105. I mean, it depends on their experience. It's going to depend on, do they have a master's degree? Those type of things. So,
Plus what they take for insurance.
right. Yeah.
My other wondering is around the transferring of a high school ed tech to a primary school ed tech.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different population of student to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So
That person would have the opportunity that if there was ed tech positions open in the secondary, that person could be transferred to a different position.
Does their contract have bumping rights for seniority, or is that not a thing?
It's only one, it's,
Okay, so it wouldn't,
I
okay.
I mean, we haven't really looked at that, but they're open positions right now.
Okay.
There are no open positions, we would have to talk that out.
Right.
Yeah.
That position is a district-wide one, and when they get hired in ELL, they know that they move with the kids, so they typically maybe start in the younger grades and will grow with the child.
Okay.
So when they get hired, they know that they will not be just hired to a particular building.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Kathy.
And just to follow up on the nurse position, the enrollment for, it's Libby Tozier and Carrie Ricker that we are looking at splitting possibly in the nurse, so 143 and 164
Mhm.
kids between those two.
Yes,
And the middle school only has one nurse and serves.
correct.
However, it's just one building. But,
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
trying to wrap my head around.
Mhm.
You're never gonna be in the right place at the right time.
No, that's, I mean,
You know, that's just the way it's gonna be.
And STS has their own nurse.
Yes.
It goes by need.
Yeah.
So every
Yes.
time we look at the student population, and so.
Kathy, would you like to come to the mic, please? Thank you.
My teacher voice is not.
Well, it's for the public. I mean, we can hear you.
Yeah.
we're gonna watch the recording.
So every year, the nurses meet and we look at our student population, including our incoming pre-K and K, because that's always when they do screenings, that one of those pieces is to figure out what the health needs are. So if I look at our numbers and when we look at what our needs are, we have 53 students that have asthma, we have 8 diabetics, we have 8 seizure students, we have 2 G-tube students, and we have 23 life-threatening allergies. So they're typically managing about 92 to 93. Then we look at how many are actually getting medication every day versus how many are having medication just in case. So we're trying to figure out what are those number of office visits. Our nurses averaged about 19,000 office visits this year. And some of them were, let's look. Out of those, 971 students were sent home because they either had a fever or some other illness. So we look at what those numbers of office visits are and where our students with like diabetic students, for example, if a student can't manage it themselves or if there's, using iPad or those kind of things, what does the care look like in terms of the need for nursing? Sometimes nursing care is required in IEPs. So we look at all of those pieces as a team and figure that out. Currently, the need right now is in the other buildings where Libby Tozier, there's less need. One, because of student population, and also the student need currently. As they come in or as we look at new registrations over the summer, the nursing staff will adjust that and they will look at their schedules. They are used to not having a nurse in every building. In fact, we only had 3 for many, many years, and shared the middle school and SPS as well. So I will say they work really, really hard. It is a major impact, and we have had increased health needs in our students, but we certainly look at it very closely.
This is just a question. We increased nurses to have one in every building, but we've still had turnover in nursing and around the district in terms of our nurses. I can think of a few that have left year after year.
I wouldn't say we had that much turnover. They've moved to other positions. Some are not in school based and other reasons. But yeah, I think it's no different than any other position, but
Is it any different from when we had 3 versus 5?
no, same
Okay,
same
that's
retention
what
rate.
I was trying to wonder about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to also note that if this had not opened, right?
Right.
Okay, so it opened, so next year, remember those ARP positions I told you? We're going to have to make decisions around, is it the nurse, is it the assistant principal at the middle school? Is it the dean at the middle school? Is it, those are big positions that we have to discuss. So when we were talking as a team, we have thought priority of those positions. So next year, in the budget, we would probably not budget to continue a nurse position over the AP position or the dean position at the middle school. See what I'm saying? So that, I think that you're seeing it kind of here,
Yep.
and we have to look at it here.
Yep.
So I think that's what's hard with this, is that if you put that nurse position in,
We're going to have to
and then next year, we're talking about these other ARP positions, that's what the challenge is around when you have those grant positions. So, yes, you were smart to say we need a nurse in every position, in every building because of COVID. But, the EPS, Essential Programming Service, I think is 1 in 350, 1 in 300 students.
Yeah.
And where you have small schools, that's where you have the challenge, and that's why you've shared positions. Because of that. So I just want you to, you're seeing this like in a box, and if there's a bigger.
And it's an opportunity that we're not having to riff somebody.
Right,
Or hire
exactly.
someone just for 1 year or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So why, or how to, so if this, so you're saying this isn't really the nurse, this is moving other people around, but it's tagged with ARP funds, which aren't in the budget.
Correct. It's moving the
So-
technology.
Right, so you got
Right.
ARP down here as, and the explanation is if it's gonna be ARP funds that we're not gonna expend, which we might not, but that doesn't impact the budget line.
No, the ARP funds are 1 more year.
Right, I
Right.
understand that. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying here, if I'm not sitting at this meeting right here, right
Correct.
now,
Right?
and I look at this, and I said, not filling an ARP funded position of the nurse, well, that's not in the budget anyway.
Correct.
But we're showing it as a reduction if we don't fill it. That's the
Where,
kind of like
you're right.
misleading,
Oh, well,
you know, what is
misleading.
it that really makes up the 82? It's not the nurse position, that's ARP.
It's technology.
So that's what it should say. It should spell out what it is that makes up the 82.
Yeah, we
not
can
a
add
nurse
that in the notes.
That's not in the budget,
Right.
right?
But we are down a nurse position.
Right.
Correct.
So I'm only looking at explanation for reductions in the budget. So a reduction in the budget would be, this makes it read as if we're using this money to go and fund an ed tech, right? Because it's next year used to cover tech
Oh,
reductions in previous
It's
budgets.
technology.
Right?
Yeah, I can change
So,
that.
you know, it really has to say, what is saving us this 82,000? It's not the nurse, because the nurse is ARP.
Well, this is for this conversation. Obviously, well,
Right, it's for this conversation, and it's
What-
public document, it goes out
What the ARP has
to
to
the
do
town.
with it, though, is that not having the nurse in there freed up ARP funds to now absorb the technology. So that's the second part of the note, is that we're moving those technology amounts back into the grant for next year.
So what you're doing is the technology positions are what you're removing from the budget.
it's not position, software, hardware.
Whatever, you're removing it from the budget. That's what
Correct.
you're removing from the budget.
Yes.
Not the nurse,
Yep.
for savings of 82,000,
Which,
because
It
it's gonna
does
be
say
funded
that.
by ARP.
I mean, it does say that because it says reducing nurse position to restructure ARP.
Yeah, and we chose to combine them and put them together because what we didn't want you to see is the reduction of the technology, moving that into the grant lines, and then a separate savings for the nurse, when if we don't do one, we can't do the other. So that's why we put it together, because if you had said, well, you know, do the reduction of the ARP, well, then we, you know, we would have to do the other piece as well. Like they went hand in hand, so we put them together.
So I think some of the confusion could be the fact that the way that it's explained, right? So we have base funded, or however we want to refer to that, and then we have ARP, which is essentially grant funded. And that ARP funds had an expiration date, which is the end of next fiscal year. So by moving things into, so currently, the SPS nurse was paid out of that grant funds that will expire in 2024. Now there is a vacancy, so there's no person attached to that position. So it gives, if we choose as a board, it gives us an opportunity to instead fund a person on a grant, which is soft money. It's going to expire, so we're going to have a hard conversation next year, and be able to fund pieces that will directly impact students in a different way. That's what this means. Okay.
Right, because if you reduce the nurse position, which you could have done, then you've lost the position.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess for me, the ones that I'm having a hard time with would be the science position, and then the special ed tech positions. I know they've been open, however, depending on who moves into the district, how things shake out, that could really impact learners. And if we don't have ed techs for students with IEPs, we might find ourselves needing to. So that's just where I'm at in terms of the two that I would like to see considered.
Anybody else? Doug?
I was doing some quick math looking at it. And again, to start, I taught science, and I definitely am very understanding with science positions and teachers and all that. But also balancing budgets. When I taught, it was very typical for me to have 24 students. So I'm actually mind blown with 12 students. I've never had 12 students in a class, unless there was some really like super, I taught an ELL science class, and that had like 12 students, and they all spoke everything but English. And they were all spoke English. There was like 24 kids for biology, which, again, so I guess to me, coming from that, I would usually very supportive of teacher positions, but I think 20 students for 1 year, because we probably have to revisit, my guess is you would try to put that on the budget for next year to have a science position.
Not necessarily.
No?
No.
Well, I mean, just to continue my thought is that cutting that is about, if we're aiming for 250,000, that's almost half. And then there are still 5 ed tech positions, 3 still unfilled, and we would be cutting another 1 that, and then there's still 3 that are unfilled that we could still fill that are within our budget. That's 150,000 right there. And then if we do the fuel lines, which is basically just fluff-ish money extra, right, that would be another 35,000. And then equipment, when I read through the basic equipment, it would sink to cut that, but I think people could live for a year without some of that. It's another 21. And then the tuition line reduction was 25. I'm already quickly at 225,000, and if we could nitpick another 25,000, we could easily roll with that for 250, and all those other things, especially those things you said that are deferred for next year, could easily be covered this year, and then we're not suffering next year. You know what I mean? And it kind of stinks to have science get bumped up to 20 students a year, but I think the payoff is that all the students are going to get a lot of benefits. We would be able to, in theory, afford 2 sets of uniforms. We would be able to cover, the training and professional development for the staff that are here. So although we're not gaining a science position, the staff that are here are still going to have that professional development bonus. I think that'll help. And again, I'm at 225,000. Even that, I personally would want to roll that out and see how that kind of went, because we get to keep a lot of the stuff that still benefits the majority of the student population with kind of a quick cut. So, I don't know, that was my 2 cents with the throw it out.
Anybody else?
Katie, is this science position the position we put back in?
Yes.
So my question is, how does this impact I know we have to raise a certain amount because of the raised town valuations.
Mm-hmm.
Is this all coming out of local entitlement?
All out of additional local.
Additional local,
Yeah,
right?
additional
Yeah.
local,
Okay.
yes.
So that's where it's going to impact the
The taxpayer,
that
yes.
taxpayer, yeah.
Yep.
So anything we reduce that doesn't go below what they're required, or what
Right.
our ED 279 says,
Right.
is all local
Yeah,
allocation, additional.
for central programs and services.
Yeah. So,
So I just have a couple of things. I appreciate everyone's third, fourth, 15th, 100th look at this probably, completely kind of understand quite a bit of that budget process. So I'm sure it wasn't easy for any of you guys in the room to take another however many looks that you have at it. So, I appreciate everyone going back and, making some cuts and having some of those tough decisions as well. I do think, kind of, as most of you have probably have kids or been in this for a while, there's opportunity with some maybe additional fundraising and things. So just because they're on this paper, doesn't necessarily maybe mean that some of the kids aren't going to get uniforms or some of those items. And getting even further creative, I know everyone really works hard at, making sure all of our students and as well as our team members have resources that they need. So, it looks like it could be an opportunity for maybe some additional fundraising or grants or, PTA helping maybe with some of those things as well. So, with all of that said, I kind of just have a couple of questions that maybe, I think, as we look to improve on some programs and, always looking to grow and helping our kids and our communities achieve some of those things, and especially with all of the struggles that are in the healthcare industry with nursing and those science positions and things, not completely medical there, but all of those positions you said kind of seem like it would fill some of those needs in the career world of those things. So, and having, I forget what, his name was that came in.
Ed Zuis?
Yes.
Yeah.
And having him come and talk about that. I would just like to know who proposed that position to be cut.
Who proposed it? I did.
Okay. And with that robotics being the proposal, I think I remember was the robotics was going to go to industrial arts.
No, we didn't work through that. I believe they will, it's the way you look at it, right? So they're looking at how, if you reduce that department needs to look at how they're delivering certain courses, and how they would manage to have the robotics and so forth for students. So that's what Marco was sharing with you is as they're doing the master schedule, which they're working on. So what I looked at is current, and I did meet with Mr. Aliberti and, Marco and talked this out. This is what I was thinking. Can we talk this out? Do you think you can manage that? And, just as he said, the struggles, but he felt he could if we work through the department. I also talked to Mr. Zuis about what my thinking, why my thinking, and we had a robust conversation about it. I think anytime you're looking at secondary and reducing department, it's tough and somebody has to make the tough decisions. And I believe they're more than capable of looking at that department and how they can best serve the students in meeting the requirements, but also offering other opportunities for students, or I would not put it on there. I would not put something on there that I could not stand behind.
Sure.
But I also understand, I want all the positions. We cut elementary positions as well. So, I get it. And it's my job to have to make sometimes hard decisions that may not be popular.
Yep. And then for some of these other kind of maintenance items, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the buildings and keep on deferring these, and then, you see the paint falling off the building or the all of those things. Is there opportunity for some of that, like those contracts? Because I think I heard some of those are like contracted items. Like we used to have somebody mowing, like a company, and doing the snow removal, but we don't anymore. We do it, or we still have somebody sometimes do it, but we do some of
We
it.
contract for snow plowing, yes.
So if any of that, and those are always going to kind of go up too as those vendors get more expensive as well. But is there any opportunity for those to maybe get bidded out again, or? And I don't know. You don't have to, you don't have the answer, and John's not here, but you know what I mean? Like some of those things that we have contracts with specific places, are they up for redoing, and can we maybe get a better kind of rate on those, just like he did with the fuel and things like that, is my only kind of thought on some of that. I was a little bit surprised to see so much technology on there, because I've heard that we've done quite a bit of some things with some of those funds, I think, in the past few years with technology, but I'm sure it was maybe outdated stuff that had to get updated, and technology is always kind of changing as well. But And then I see the instructional equipment like tables, chairs, drill press, sander, et cetera, et cetera. I would just say that I think that probably we could get some of those items donated so that the kids, if those items were to get cut, the kids still would have the opportunity to have them, but.
Anybody else?
Oh, one more thing. Do we know what this does to the local, like on page 4?
I know what the local
Yeah.
contribution. We have not done that because I didn't know where the number was, but, we'll definitely bring that for the July 12th. I mean, if you look at that and you know where they were, they were up $1 million or so, so you're coming down about halfway for the increase. So I think the mill rates are probably more tangible now that the towns have passed their budgets. So we'll have more updated, probably better information around mill rate impact because of the town budgets have gone through. So we can get that and add that to this and send it out and post it. Once you give direction like this is where we want to be, then we can calculate it and we'll make it public. We just didn't want to calculate something and, right, exactly.
Anybody else have any questions that need answered?
How old are these uniforms that you?
Brian, do you want to talk about the uniforms? You can come to the table. And you could explain how the booster also supported.
And are the soccer uniforms for both teams?
So last year, girls soccer was able to get new uniforms. So this would actually be boys soccer uniforms. I believe their uniforms are close to 8 or 9 years old. During COVID, my understanding is uniforms weren't necessarily purchased just because of all the other hiccups. So a lot of our sports teams are behind right now. And then as far as field hockey goes, we have a lot of athletes who don't fit in the current uniforms due to various sizes. So we have athletes who are uncomfortable wearing them or not able to actually fit into certain uniforms. So that was kind of the big push for this year to try to get them new uniforms so all of our athletes can participate in appropriately fitting uniforms.
Brian, what's the yearly cost of recertifying our football gear and all that? Helmets and...
Yeah, so it kind of comes in waves based off what we use.
Right.
So typically helmets are recertified every couple of years, and then as like practice jerseys or practice pants and that wear out,
Yeah.
they get redone. So I can't give you an exact number because it really comes down to wear and tear based off, we could have a brand new uniform that gets destroyed in one practice. You know what I mean? Or a jersey can last for a couple of years. You know what I mean? So it's tough to give it an exact number. We try to do our best to, restock and use what we have, so we're not spending as much money on that. That way, that cost isn't too much.
But I know our helmets have to be recertified, you said every 2 years,
I believe it's every 2, yeah.
and shoulder pads, they get inspected, I guess.
Yep. Yeah.
You
Same
know,
thing. So
repaired.
all of our gear goes out. So we have technicians through different
Right.
companies who will come
Yeah.
in and they'll inspect them when they come visit, and they'll kind of give us.
Any ballpark number that you might have for that?
I want to say last year was around 3,000, and that was a little bit on the heavier end.
Yeah,
So this coming year it shouldn't be as much, just because we were able to do a lot more this past year.
right, okay.
So we have a kiddo in football. I have a 7th grader that is 6'1", and we get these little we spend over $600 a year just on that, and we also offer to donate for any kid that maybe can't, because of the cleats and the mouth guards that they chew the crap out of, and all of those things. But, I know, especially in the sporting community, that we have a pretty solid group of people that whatever our kids need, we do. And I think that's probably pretty common for some other folks as well. There's a ton of opportunity there with some grants and things too. So like looking at field hockey is a little near and dear to my heart, and I could probably get you a check by the end of next week. But there's just things like that we have a pretty good community of people that we do the fundraisers and we put the work in to help the programs grow too. So I know that's there. But from a football mom perspective, we spend over $600 a year.
Yeah, and we have a great boosters department, and they're working hard. Obviously, Same thing, like COVID implications with fundraising kind of impacted them as well. I think it's just tough. We have so many extracurricular and co-curricular programs who fundraise in our community that it's the same communities, the same families, the same businesses who constantly get hit up. And at some point, people can only donate and fundraise so much. So it's a constant give and take with all those organizations of how do we appropriate fundraise? How do we not overtap different organizations and communities, but still how do we get the best bang for our buck to benefit all of our students?
One thing I kind of thought of, and not to get like super off topic, is like local area businesses that if you were to set up a program and say, you know, we have these list of sports and this is what we're kind of looking for financials this year, you could pick to be like a gold star or, you know, a silver or whatever membership, that some of those community members, because I've spoken with them, would love to do things like that. So they would love to be the gold, and they're always like once a month they're kind of highlighted on some things that they're supporting those programs and things like that. But I can shoot you some stuff anyway.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know we've looked into some of that stuff earlier this year, and we have
Yeah.
certain policies on sponsorships and things like that, which are kind of limiting per se for some of those instances. But
We
if
can
we
take it to the policy committee.
yeah, say if we can, I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
You know.
Any other questions? Well, I guess we're down to crunch time. We want to go around the room and find out where we are, so we can give them some direction to come back with a number for July. Doug?
Can I just ask, just so I can get a deferred costs, which ones of these are the deferred ones again, just so I can kind of go through the line items? What would we have to pay back or put into the budget more next year to pay?
I would think that
Right. Yeah.
It's about-
the key entry
Right,
thing.
the ricotta.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
ricotta.
Yeah,
The,
If we get a grant.
if we get a grant.
yeah, the technology funds that have been shifted, the 72,000.
The tech, so tech.
All the tech funds were deferred.
All of those
Yeah,
would
pretty-
be deferred for next year.
Well, you're seeing, okay, go down to, see here, the 43,000, where it said postpone in the notes?
Oh, yeah,
But the
yeah, I
5,800,
know, yeah,
line
I see it.
38.4,
Server up.
I'm there, yeah. So those are deferred, and then the one that Bob spoke about, shifting the tech into the ARP funds, that's deferred. That's 72,000, yeah.
So that would be the nurse kind of thing. That would
It's, in order to bring the nurse into the position, we put the technology in ARP, so we're gonna have to talk about bringing that money back
So
in.
next, that's something that we'll revisit.
Yes, you'll revisit that, yeah.
So in the nurse notes where it says ARP used to cover tech reductions in previous budget, does that mean that tech reductions in our previous budget are gonna be funded through ARP?
Yes.
All right, so
So,
we're bringing some items that we had taken out of the previous budget in technology. We're gonna bring them and we're going to satisfy those using ARP funds.
you had them in ARP. This year, I asked NJ to look at the lines to put that back into the general funds. So she did a lot of reductions in different areas, really looking at all the lines. Remember, we had that lease purchase for technology that we had already reduced. And so this is shifting it back to ARP for the final year. So it had been, this was the first year we were
Right, so
moving
we
it.
had taken it out of the budget.
Correct,
They
you
weren't
had.
gonna be funded.
Correct,
Right, now we're gonna fund them using ARP funds that are freed up because we're not gonna have a nurse.
correct.
So the justification to take them out in the first place has been looked at, and so I don't understand the
Correct.
reduction if we're gonna use that reduction to go and fund something that was taken out before.
No, okay, so I know this is confusing, I get it. So there's a nurse position in the general fund,
In the general fund.
Correct.
Not the ARP,
and there's one in the ARP.
right.
So when we had the opening in the nurse position, instead of reducing that position to save money, we're moving the ARP position into the general fund, so that those general fund nurse positions are staying whole. In order to do that, and it was a savings of $10,000, but in order to do that, and make the more reduction, we talked to NJ about moving that money that we had moved back in for this budget back to ARP. So when we do the budgets for the ARP and the projects, there's a technology project that was funding these items. We tried to get them in the general fund. So now we're moving back
Okay.
so that we don't lose the nurse position.
So I guess just to say it for everybody, is that it looks like 119, and then the tech nurse thing, 119, like almost 200,000. It's still, it's all deferred. So we would want, I kind of feel like addressing that this time would probably make more sense than addressing that next time, right, for deferred, just to throw that out there as a thought. I mean, for everybody, even the people at home.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, remember, budget season starts over again, right? So we'll be looking at all the big picture again. So,
And there's gonna be things that are currently funded and working really well through grants that we're going to have to make decisions about.
correct, right.
And that's the tension for me right now, is like, okay, we come up with this number. Are we gonna be able to recoup what's cut?
Which is, I think, what you're saying.
The increase.
Yeah, it's gonna be a double-edged sword.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna be looking like we're really
Really, right,
increasing the budget.
right.
We're going up twice a hill.
Yeah.
We're not.
I mean, next year, you may see more positions reduced. Like this year, you reduced positions.
Right.
You reduced 3 teaching positions at the elementary.
Which is
ed tech
significant.
position, right.
Yeah.
So next year, as we come in, that's our job, is to work to say, how do we make this work? And we look again at our patterns of spending, right? So, yes, we're going to work with technology, we're going to work with all the departments again to say, how do we bring this in, how do we bring that in? What's our state funds? Did that increase? I mean, there's a lot of factors. So and it's great that you're thinking forward, future forward. What we tried to do is not, as you pointed out, 4 positions could manage this, 5 positions. We tried not to do that, right? We tried to take what you said, which is stay as far away from positions as you could. Obviously, if we have a science position at the last spot, what can you imagine would come after that?
Right.
Only positions. So we tried to honor what you said, which is please stay away from positions. Now that we've done that, next year, there's going to be positions probably on there.
So I think that's an important piece for us to think about, right? Because we're already having a hard time passing the budget.
Right.
And if we cut the stuff that's the easiest, we're probably never gonna recoup it back. So then we don't have easy things to cut. That's just,
And with that, I guess when I proposed my suggestions, I kind of thought of it like my house,
Yeah.
you know? Some of this stuff, the maintenance stuff, this is the cheapest it's gonna be. The longer you let maintenance go, obviously wood rots, you know,
There
and
you
then
go.
things kinda, so that's why, I
And
mean,
we've already referred 300,000
right.
out of the first pass of the budget that failed.
yeah,
So now it's compounding.
yeah, it just.
But I also think that, like everyone took time again to go back and look and say that these were items that could be deferred as well. So maybe they are a want over a need and they'll become a need, but there's always going to be paint and there's always going to be landscaping and there's always going to be these things. So there's that as well of, like these are items that the directors and the principals and the team said they could live without this year.
Right, because the option was staff.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So if
Correct.
you didn't defer this maintenance year, there'd be more staff at the bottom.
Correct.
So, I mean, Doug brought up a good point about, when he said cherry picking some. There are some on here, while removing them removes the buffer, but, so we already have some givens on here. We know the 20,000 workers' comp is gonna be a savings, because we've got the bill in, right? So that's not going to remove any program whatsoever. All of the fuel changes, goes, because we've locked in the price and based upon our usage, those go in. I don't know about the 2.5 lawnmowers, I don't know how critical we need that lawnmower.
Well, that, remember, all that is being
Purchase now.
purchased now.
Yes. So that's our, like,
That's out anyway.
So that's how.
so what, so
Oh,
on this list,
Right.
what's done?
Yeah, so it's
Correct.
coming out of next year's budget because we're buying it now.
Correct.
Right.
with
Are those
money
being
that we
purchased
have.
locally?
But it was in next year's budget, so
But it
that,
was in next year's
so that
budget.
means, so we're
From
buying
like
it
a
now, so
local,
that's
in
not a
the
hit.
district
Right.
business.
Right, so that's
Right.
13,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? And then I look down and under, which isn't been dollars, but professional ed services, that's gonna be covered by a grant. So that 900 and some,
Right.
$912, that's not gonna hurt us at all. If we take out all the stuff that goes to the card reader,
Yep.
Yeah.
both up there under repairs and maintenance and also under tech equipment, because we're not gonna use that printer.
Yep.
Between those and if we bought into the science teacher position removal, transferring the EL tech from one to the other so we don't have to hire one there, and the tuition reduction line, that's 291,000. Right,
And we get
which
to
is
keep that on
somewhere in
there.
between. And if you want to get it down, you got 40,000, you could, you can either leave the tuition assistance in, that's 25, right, that would go back in. But, those there, so now all of the professional development, the maintenance that would be deferred in the next year, and we have suffered the consequences of deferred maintenance over and over and over again
Yeah.
in this school district. So it will eat us up, it will come to roost,
Yeah.
and it'll be like that boiler at Libby Tozier. You got no choice. Even
So-
if we were planning on closing that building in 2 years, which we're not, we would have had to spend that money on the boiler to keep it running for 2 years.
Katie,
Yes?
could we use that document? as
Yeah, I
a-
just made a duplicate.
I was gonna say, can we go
line by
down,
line.
Yes.
starting at the top,
Yep.
and go down line for line, and
Mhm.
take out what we either wanna see if we can hang on to,
Should be on it, it's the same
It's a-
document.
however
another
we can
tab.
work it, so we can get to a number
Yes.
collectively.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think that would be really,
Mhm.
really good.
We'll just have to do the change of the thing. Yeah,
I
okay,
mean, that way
so,
there, we can have a discussion about each item.
yep.
So Bob
just
made a
gonna
good
rate
point
it.
about the
I just-
workman's comp. We know that's a savings because we have the bill.
So let's highlight the stuff that we're
Right.
cutting.
Well, I'm gonna erase, because
Yeah.
I made a copy. I'm gonna take out
Right.
what you, okay, go, so keep going, I know what you're doing. Yep, go ahead, Rob.
So CR fuel, we know we're the same way. We know what
Yeah.
we're gonna spend there.
Yep.
Okay,
Take out all that table covers and,
All of
because you're
that.
buying that, right?
Yeah, but that's a reduction.
That's,
yeah, that's,
okay.
So
that's
leave
still a
it.
reduction in the
Okay.
other
Oh, 'cause
budget.
it's, all right.
So anything that you're buying this year, yeah, we
staying.
leave that number
We
in.
leave
Yeah.
that number
Because that
in.
goes against what we're
Right,
cutting.
okay.
Yep.
Right.
What about supply line?
So
I
talk,
mean-
talk to us what that means.
He looked at the supply, we looked at the spending of the supply line, really the three of us looked at the spending of the supply line, and what has been the pattern of spending.
So supplies for what?
Supplies for maintenance,
Okay, so this is
custodial.
Paper
Classroom
towels,
teacher.
toilet
No, this
paper,
isn't,
cleaning-
this is not teacher, this is
no,
maintenance.
Cleaning supplies.
Cleaning, exactly.
Okay.
So he had increases there, and so we looked at those increases and we reduced the increases. So he still has an increase, but not to the level of
Right.
increase.
And I know what he's doing. He's trying to, he's estimating what an increase
Correct.
of supplies might cost.
Okay.
Correct.
So I think we leave that as a reduction.
Yep.
Because it
Yeah.
sounds like it's.
Yeah,
under
he's done a lot of work
budget.
on it.
Yeah.
He knows what he needs.
Yep.
So, all right, so now you said leave it as a reduction, so you're going to eliminate that from the budget? All right, along with the gas.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're at the
Okay.
maintenance repair, which was the Verkada access cards, and then other maintenance things that he shared with us that he would just have to look at things a little bit differently around his repair and maintenance
Yeah, it
lines.
says the front entrance signs, right?
Right.
Kick that over so we can read
Yeah.
that.
So could we just
Just take out the
Jake's-
Verkada.
Yes, take out the
Yeah.
Just
Verkada
subtract
and
the
then
We have the numbers, can you pull that up from
And
his
then leave
spreadsheet?
Just subtract it right there, too.
put the other stuff back in.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that, so
Especially
he, he had it, remember? He had his reduction.
my car the other day.
Yeah, you're taking what's in there. Okay, we're gonna work on that, so we'll keep going, all right? He wants, they want this.
And we're gonna do the same thing
There.
on 22, Katie? Take out the 15.
Yeah, we're gonna do all
Yeah.
those, we're gonna do
Right.
all those, yep,
And leave the removal of dead trees, miscellaneous painting.
yeah.
Landscaping, windows, hardware, hinges.
So I'm gonna take that off, because that wasn't Verkada.
Right.
Right.
So you're saying
Okay.
34,000 is the difference between this list and that list. That's where you want.
They want this out. Right, yeah, you're right. You'll see it, it's in my notes, it's in my notes. Okay, we know this stays because it's a grant.
Yeah.
Okay. Central office supplies,
Top two of us.
yeah, well, we
Again,
can make
you'll be
that
okay?
work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Uniforms,
take that off.
Take that out.
everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
And, but to Laura's point, like, I think if people knew we needed them, they would fundraise for it, but,
Well, a lot of times the boosters do,
yes.
but I didn't know where they are. I mean, Brian, they've been having trouble, like you said, fundraising because of COVID and I know
No
that,
ice for ice derby this year.
well, yeah. And they didn't have the ice fishing
Just
derby.
highlight
Here's what's
yellow
being
and come back
cut,
to it.
that should be, this
Could that
should
come in
replace
potentially
this.
less than 5,000?
Potentially. I mean, that's like the average. So it all depends on the quality uniform you get, which then you're looking into
Yeah.
how long does it last?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You know, that
Do you
sort of
want,
thing.
do you want to keep soccer uniforms in and take field hockey uniforms out?
Oh,
Because that was his, remember,
They don't fit in those.
They
field
don't-
hockey was a 2,
Yeah,
soccer was a
yes.
1.
Yeah.
Can I see a thumbs up, or I
For
can
right
live with
now.
it?
It depends on where our bottom line
People?
is.
Yeah.
People?
Yeah,
Anyone?
we can revisit it once we see the bottom
Hi-
line, so leave
Highlight it
it,
yellow
leave it.
for us, so we'll come back to it.
Just want to put it
Our
back in.
visual learning machine. I need color
Okay.
please. It is. Look at my notes.
I think I do a fill here. Yes, okay, look at that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
what about,
What you want me to do with these lines, because that number's higher than what I just had.
I think we can move on from that.
Like if you look at.
We want to
his-
leave, we're going to
here's
continue
the
to cut
forward
those?
cuts, there's the cuts.
If
For
they-
Verkada, that's the difference.
I think that they've all identified that they could
Yeah.
Yeah,
survive
I
with
think,
that.
I think they've
This is what
identified
they
that they
want.
can live without
Yeah.
it.
I mean, they want that cut and the others to stay, so.
Yeah,
that-
so
that
my number,
matches
those
that
are all
number.
left in.
Here's
Yes.
So
the-
the cut to 291,
Yes.
those were all left,
Okay.
Okay,
not
why-
left
why-
in to
why-
be cut.
That's
They
the
were
They
Verkada
were-
cost.
left
They were
in to be budgeted.
Put back into the budget. My,
Right.
my math as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's highlight those yellow.
What, these?
Yep.
The office,
Because
sorry, we're
depending
still.
on where we
depe-
land on our bottom line, we might want to.
Yeah, keep talking to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Whoops.
I only had one other
Hold
item
on.
above the black line, and that was the technology for the card reader.
Right, because we don't
I'm
need
gonna
that.
get this correct.
To go,
Does it
right?
match?
To-
Yeah. Okay, so.
Right.
To keep it in.
Or to stay.
Yeah,
All right,
to stay.
you wanted in
To
yellow.
remove it from the budget.
Yeah, just
Okay.
highlight it.
I'm gonna have to go back for a minute, because it's hard to
got
do.
it.
So what,
You need to
so
display that screen differently.
what about the technology?
Is this
Bob, work with me, work with me.
I know, but 3 rows of data.
I know, I'm
and
sorry.
150 rows of headers.
This is why we should all use our laptops.
Command minus.
But then we're not going to be able to read it. So.
Well, you might get more.
So those for
Somebody will have to come over.
57.
All right, what about the tech? I'm in technology. What did you want me to do there? I'm sorry, we were, what do you want to do with the technology?
I had them all in except for,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Now
But now
that's
it's,
better.
now it's smaller, but,
except for the 1895 in the Zebra card printer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
you're welcome. Okay,
Eliminate that.
which one are we eliminating? Give me the number again.
The 1895, row
36.
36.
This one?
No, we're leaving that
Oh,
for.
Oh,
Okay,
so this is the whole thing. We got,
you're
we've got things
keeping,
marked on here to keep that were not in my 191. It all depends on where you look. Are we looking to keep it in the budget? In which case, we would eliminate it.
Right,
from the
so
screen.
are we you want to take off the postponement of the server?
No.
So again.
Well, to remove it, right? 'Cause I want
Yes,
that
that's
to
what I'm
happen.
saying.
We wanted to go back into what we're funding.
Right.
Yeah.
This list shows the things that we're gonna cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So when
So
Lily-
Yes.
In print, we're cutting.
everything from that row up to the professional ed would have been deleted for the
Because
291.
we want to keep it in.
We wanna keep-
Right.
Yes.
So we want to keep it in the budget, not in the cut list.
All right, let's go back up here.
So,
So-
the Verkada is
Okay.
going to be cut.
Right.
Yes, we cut the
But we're back
verkada.
in. So we just, so on the
You're right.
spreadsheet.
It's a
yes.
difference.
So
You
just
were
put the
right.
Verkada
You were
numbers.
so right.
which-
Okay, we're fixing the verkada one. Did you do the
All you
opposite
have
of
to
what I
do is
said
type
to do?
in the number you got, 25,
But
10,
that's wrong.
29.6.
Wait a
We'll
minute.
get there, okay.
No, they want what they want the verkada cut. So it's a difference between that first number and that one. So you were absolutely correct.
So I'm just gonna get rid of all of them.
Yeah, and start again, yes.
We need to get the grant.
You were right, you were right. It's hard for me because they're talking it through different
no, I
ways.
hear you,
Okay,
yeah.
so, we're fixing that, we've got it.
All right?
So
It's
the
hard
difference
because
is-
you all are talking at once.
Right.
And we're trying to figure,
Can,
You don't have to figure, just
That's
type
gonna
in
be
2,500 in that row.
no, it's not. It's the difference between, just stop for a minute. We know what we're doing.
Yes.
We're doing what was in there, okay? It's not the minus the verkada. It's what's, you'll just trust us, we've got it.
No, I mean,
There's more than just the verkada.
Correct.
But we're only cutting
Right,
the
but-
verkada.
right.
Right.
So
okay.
it should only be
So
the
if we're only
2,500
cutting,
in
if
that
we're
row.
only cutting the
that cell.
frittata,
Just put
like,
the verkada.
Should be
Hang on,
2,500.
hang on. John has told me numerous times that the verkada cut is like 70,000,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna delete everything else and replace that with like 70,000,
Okay, perfect.
okay?
Thank you.
Well, it's 15,
It-
25.
What she's doing is
quick
she's
math.
combining
Nowhere near
it.
70,000
We're
yet.
good. Okay, thank you. All right, now let's go down here again.
Well, go back up first.
Okay, go back up.
Because,
It's one person.
I mean, we can do this multiple times, but for the number that I had, and we can then relook at that, tweak it, is all of these, everything, all the equipment lines except for the lawnmower, because you're buying, right? So I don't know if this other equipment, the AC unit or the various
Yeah,
other.
Yes, all of
that's
it's
all
being
getting done.
purchased.
All
Okay,
getting done
that's
this
all
year.
being done,
Yes.
so those
Yeah.
all get left there.
Correct, you were correct.
And so does the sound panels and kidney tables?
Yes,
Okay, so then we get the Carrie Ricker maintenance supply line.
yes.
We leave that.
We would delete that so
Yeah.
that it goes into the budget?
No, they wanted
No.
that still to
You
be
don't want
out.
to budget it, you don't want to
No,
budget.
because correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded like Jonathan did
Yeah,
a cost analysis and an inventory, and
Right.
this is where
Yes.
he landed it in terms of what was needed.
Right, in terms of what was needed based upon his projection for price increases.
Not
So
needed,
if we
what
bought
he,
the same
what
amount
he
of
has.
supplies, it would cost us that much more because of price increases.
right.
what
Right,
he's
so-
saying is, when we looked at spending patterns and looked at need, he felt he could reduce. He's more supportive of reducing the supply lines than he is the repair maintenance. So you did exactly what he would have wanted. If he were sitting here,
Yeah.
we added those repair lines today.
Right.
We had not put them there, and we put them in today.
So this number is not because of his projected cost increase based
It-
upon the supplies he needs, but he can reduce the supplies
Correct.
he needs.
Yes,
Okay,
Based on action.
Can
Then
I
they
just
would
ask,
stay in.
yes.
if he turns out to need more supplies
Mhm.
in the year, how do we cover that?
No, he monitors his accounts probably more than he should, 20, 48,
So he's-
every 24 hours, yeah.
I just
Right.
want to know.
Yeah, he will have his cost center,
Right, and he can move.
he can move things
Yeah.
around.
He's not tied to.
You're right, if he
For
needed
everything.
something in Libby Tozier, he could move money around if they need.
Just like we can do with the budget with cost
just needs
centers.
to stay with his
Right,
bottom.
like if we stay under the total budget and if we need to move money between cost centers because of things that we didn't anticipate, up to 5%, and with the discretion of the finance and facilities, we
All
can
right.
do the same thing.
So
you-
everything we're leaving up is coming out of the budget?
Yeah.
Correct.
Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're two, You're 208,747
Well, hang on.
out of the 250 so far.
Okay.
Right,
Out of
so-
the 250 that we identified. We're still going. All right, keep going.
So my number from that CO down to the printer, I had left in so that we would have the professional development and training and the travel reimbursement for the necessary travel that they have to do around the district and on things. I had
So-
left all of that, I had removed all of that.
The 500, the 400, the 400. You want that out.
Yeah, he's starting at the CO supply is where I started. And I removed all those numbers so that they would all be funded.
From
Of-
uniform
of one
down?
more.
Well, it sounds like
Well-
school supplies, they're okay with it.
We're fine with
Okay.
that.
That cut.
I picked out the stuff to come up with a
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
All right, well,
right?
let's
So
keep
then for the
going.
uniforms down,
You want the uniforms in or out?
Well, we need to
I
decide.
want them out
We're
of this
yeah.
list.
So we're funding it.
We need to decide if it comes down to field hockey or soccer, we need to have that discussion.
Right, and when we get down to a bottom line after this, we can go back and any of these that we left in or took out, we can discuss, and that's where, so this gives us a starting point with certain items removed.
Yellow's a vote.
Or we can just say 5,000 for uniforms and not specify.
Right, and he can decide what he does.
Yeah.
Yep, you can do
Yeah.
that. Okay, so I'm going to take it out here, assuming you're going to leave the other one.
Right.
Okay, all right.
These are all gonna have mine.
Even if you leave the
Yeah,
other
we
one,
already put
remember,
it.
what's left on here is what we're reducing.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, so if we're gonna forfeit, we're gonna leave the other one on the list.
Correct, that's
So
what
we're
I'm
gonna
hearing.
reduce
Potentially,
5,000.
we'll see.
All right,
All right.
and so I left everything in
How many,
there. down to-
can we see a consensus, Robbie, can help with the
Yep.
consensus for Office of the Principal lines? Do people want, do I have consensus to take off the principal lines? Or no, we want them to stay as a reduction?
I think I would personally say that if they've looked at
I
them and
see
say
it
that-
down, down. Okay, so it's staying. I'm going to go by those. Now I'm at technology.
You're gonna leave in the cuts to travel and professional
We're
development.
cutting that, but we're taking off the deferred upgrade 1 year. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Yeah,
We're taking off the upgrade PC, but we're going to leave on the Verkada connection. Okay, guidance. They felt they could reduce this.
But that position's also open.
Position, Kathy, you're the SPS,
Yeah, for what she was ordering was specific to her, and there's still a cushion for,
a new person.
Okay. then
Okay,
I'm
Okay, so
comfortable
those
with
can
that
stay.
Okay.
And Jay will get
Norma Jean, we'll get creative with her PD.
Okay, so now we're at instructional supplies. Do you want the instructional supplies back in the budget, back to the budget? Or do you want them to be stayed reduced? I need to see thumbs.
I think we can leave them reduced.
Who wants the instructional
Instructional
size to
supplies?
stay reduced? I
I'd
need
like
to,
them in the budget.
how many want them back in the budget, the instructional supplies? You want them back in the budget?
right, supplies for
So
instruction,
I want them in the budget,
In the
I
budget.
want them out of the budget.
in the budget.
In the budget.
In the budget.
Okay, I see more for it.
But can we pick apart the high school one?
Are we not?
That's,
Can we pick,
Well, the SPS one is the position that you cut, so that isn't tied to somebody.
so that could stay in.
okay.
You want to reduce the high school, now remember, these are items. Do you
These are
want to
items.
cut it in half? Do you-
It's just so significant compared to the other schools, so
Well,
that's
remember, they're not equitable in how much of an increase they each have.
correct,
Correct.
okay.
Are,
But if we
tables-
cut a science position, that was
tables
even
and
before,
chairs for
okay.
business?
Yeah.
Would you like to, Marco, would you like to talk
Yeah,
about?
sorry, Marco.
Yes, would you talk about your?
Yes, am I allowed to come to the table, or
Uh,
do you want
you
to stay
can-
here?
Come to the table.
Gonna get tested.
You're back to the table, Marco.
Yeah.
The hot.
So just to go through these specifically, the tables and chairs for business. So these are my notes, so that's why you're not going to understand them. So Tables and chairs for business, that's for some of our business classes. We replace some of the office chairs that are there for the computer lab yearly, along with purchasing a couple of tables for gaming as we run a game design and history of gaming classes. So that's what those two pieces are there for. We have a drill press and sander that has been requested from Mr. McCarthy for industrial technology. And then some of the larger items here really are the bikes, helmets, skates, so they're inline skates, and a boot dryer for physical education. And then also a digital microscope for science, as we actually, over the last couple of years, we've updated our microscopes to replace them all because they were old. They were in great condition, but they were starting to fail us. So I guess they weren't in great condition.
They were usable, they were just not.
So I guess.
They were maintained
Marco,
well, yes.
Priority-wise, table and chairs for business over drill press and sander, over bikes, helmets.
Or do we
Welcome
just
to
give
my
him
world.
I say just give McCarthy whatever he wants. He came back.
Yeah.
But what, you just said yeah, and I'm not sure what.
Oh, sorry.
To what,
So
sorry.
What I meant to say is, if we want to say, I would say all those things are
Yeah.
important.
Sure. I would rather, I guess, Robbie, have a dollar amount, and instead of you having me rate which program is probably more beneficial to the high school.
In my mind, the drill press and sander is important, and the digital microscope is important. And otherwise than that, I think that the tables, I mean, can they get by without tables and chairs?
Mhm.
Yeah, because I got them on the list.
Because they got them on the list.
We've got, I mean, it's not like the chairs aren't there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? They're just not, they need to be replaced,
Right.
is what it comes down to. They're not, it's not that they're not
So,
functional.
I guess I don't know what the number would be, the savings would be, but I would leave the drill press and the sander for industrial technologies and the microscope for science.
Yep.
Those-
And I bet you if I go to my car, I've got the budget book there, because that's where
Right.
apparently I keep my
I'm
budget book.
just saying
And,
that would be my,
I could go and find out
He's
what
gonna go
specific
do
numbers
what
are.
he needs to do. Doug has a
Can we
question.
just,
These need to be new materials to replace highly used material, I guess what I'm asking.
Are you asking if we could buy used materials?
I guess I'm just asking for my own, because through my work, a lot of times used office equipment and that kind of stuff, they'll sell it for very.
Sure.
Is that something I could try to be aware of to funnel that way?
Sure,
to try to
absolutely.
help with offsetting
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
I guess I was just kind of
I appreciate
curious,
that.
like a drill press and
Sure.
that kind of stuff and equipment.
And then my question is, could the digital microscope not have been damaged with the flood? I'm just picking on you. Could that have been?
Are you asking me to put it on the
Yeah.
insurance claim?
I just thought I saw one up there with the water, you know? Yeah?
Can I have a witness statement?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Do you, how about, I mean, he's gonna go,
I'll
could
go
you go
get
get
the
the
budget
budget
book.
book? And we'll come back to it, okay?
Okay.
All right,
but
yes.
I don't think that we should,
Go.
I don't think we
Correct.
should say it funds X, Y, Z. I think we say, Marco, you have, like, if we were gonna cut this, I would say, can we cut it by 5,000?
well, I know for a fact that the drill press and the sander is probably around $150 to $200 a piece. I don't know what a digital microscope costs.
There it is.
So I'm saying that all this other, the table, chairs, business, helmets, skates, and everything else is between the digital microscope, the sander, and the drill press might be $1,000.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
So that leaves you $22,000 savings.
Yep.
What I think I'm hearing from Marco, though, is if it's a number, he can go back to his staff and say, what's a priority? You all might think the drill press sander is a priority.
Right.
However, they may say, well, more students use the PE equipment. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. So I think what I'm hearing is if we could reduce that number, then let him know, okay, you just got this much money back. What-
Okay, let's say 20,000.
Take out
Take
20,000?
out 20.
Okay. So
I don't even think that's gonna cover your microscope.
Okay.
Leave that number in there.
Well, no, I'm saying leave the 20,000
Okay.
in the cut
Oh, so just take.
Take 3,445 out.
and put it back in the budget.
Put 20 back in.
Right.
20 back in or 20 reduction?
No. 20 reduction.
Okay, all right, we're there now.
Leave them
Right.
35.
All right, we just gave you 3,000 there. Okay.
No.
I'm not sure.
Gave them.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
No,
We
no,
did.
no.
Take 20 out.
Can we go back over this one more time? There was 23,000 there. Do you want to put back the 20,000, or you want to put back the difference between the total and 20,000?
I want to put 3,000 back into the budget.
Okay.
And take out 20.
That's what we have there.
Right.
Yep.
And I was maybe proposing to put a 10 there.
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh, I read them wrong too, yeah.
I think it's interesting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 board members just sitting here of how much we are like, we have resources with equipment and uniforms and different things. And I think if just us sitting in this room and we have 1,300 kids and everyone has 2 people maybe or more, that if this could be maybe communicated more over the next year of what needs are, that maybe we could help get some of these
Yeah,
going for sure.
We hear you.
I was thinking the same thing as we're going through this. This stuff, I had no idea. I wish I had known if we had like a list of stuff that if they didn't mind used, I could easily acquire this, a lot of this stuff
Right.
as we go through. you
Yeah,
know,
we never
like-
usually get that down into the weeds
Right.
because we
Yeah.
would take, it would take us a year and a half to look at every item, how many reams of paper, how many pencils and paper, you know. I mean, so it's, we kind of get a number in the budget when we're looking at the budget and it has some explanation. So industrial arts equipment, you know, industrial technician equipment, you know, that stuff. We don't know what that is because it could be a list this long or it might be one item.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult to, you really have to have somebody that is in there looking to do the buy-in, to go and say, well, what if I ask the community if they have something like this?
I think it's easy enough for
That's
all
another
of the people to put together a list. If you just had one list and like, these are items we need, and you post it on the website or something, and community could just go identify as needed and help, but
Okay. No, those, great ideas. All right, so we're at the middle school now. I do know the 935 was a planned book read, and I don't know if you want to hear more about that. There's also a reduction of 2897. What do you want to do about the middle school? And would you like Amy St. Pierre to come and talk about those 2 lines?
I personally feel that instructional supplies we should put back into the budget. So I think we should, with the with the 10,000 reduction for the high school, I'd like to see SPS go back in, the middle school stuff go back in.
Remember, SPS
Oh,
was a
SPS is a
position
person that,
cut, yeah.
never
Right.
mind, yes, thank you.
we're gonna stay going forward.
Okay,
We are-
so can I give, all right, so the middle school, would you like to put their supplies?
Because I
Okay,
think
sorry.
that might be a similar situation. It's a person that's not there anymore.
Okay,
Correct,
so that's,
yeah.
you want, that's okay to be in there.
I think the
Both?
935 would be more important because it's a book, they were planning to do a book read with the staff. Is that correct, Amy?
Yes.
Okay,
Is that-
so,
Can that still happen?
I can use it in instruction, improvement of instruction.
so you have funds for
I
that?
think that's up here.
Okay,
So get rid of, leave it there as a cut.
we're going to leave it,
Okay.
yeah.
So on the instructional supplies, you said we tied them to a person. Is this a position that we're gonna fill?
No, no.
All right, so supplies were destined for just one individual and not for the school?
It was a position that she was buying supplies for the entire school.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so it's supplies for the entire school, not for a person.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Where are we number?
All right, so now you're at $188,902.26 out of your 250. We're going to move that line as you keep going,
Okay.
all right? So now we have the tuition line. Now you're down into what created got us to the 525,000. So let's go line by line. What about the tuition line reduction?
I think that should be left into the budget, taken out of here. We have a lot of need for staff to get courses.
Feel like that's what keeps staff here,
Yeah.
Partially, and we have a lot of people that are on
conditionals.
conditionals that, have to get courses.
How many want that removed from this list?
So you
Tuition
said-
line.
Sorry, you said you would be looking at maybe if the staff weren't attending or they were not doing their courses or taking longer.
We would just have to scrutinize more intentionally around approving course tuition,
They come
course reimbursement.
throughout the year, so, by July, I get the ones that are taking the fall courses, so it's for folks that are not maybe taking either summer, or, spring or summer, eventually there's no money, so sometimes it is hard to scrutinize of priorities, it's sometimes
So,
it's first come, first served, I
Kathy-
don't know if they're getting.
Yeah, if they knew that there was gonna be a set amount, do you think that would make more people take fall classes than?
It's about when they're offered to.
Right.
So
Oh,
it's
that's
not
true,
always
yeah.
the
Right.
case, but we did survey. I know which ones are taking it and those kind of things, but it's also about when the colleges are offering it.
Right.
So the survey number was,
66,000,
and so if,
and that's with no new staff.
and that's with no new staff, 66,000. And in the budget, we had
75.
75, so the difference is $9,000?
Yes.
All right, that's on people that have already told us courses they want to take. And without any new staff. So,
And I didn't know what their tuition rate was going to change from when I budgeted to what's going to be for the fall. That's why the
System doesn't have a budget yet.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to go by the UML rate. I don't always know what that rate will be in variance, so that's why there's a little cushion there.
So could we say 10 instead of 25?
Yeah. That's closer to your.
Can I get a
66.
thumbs up? Does everybody want that reduced to 10? Can they live, yeah, okay.
I'll live with that.
But you may
Okay.
not,
Laura,
doesn't mean you're
what
gonna
are you
use
thinking?
it.
I haven't seen your thumb, Laura.
So I think just simple math would be 15, but if you're at 66 and you reduce it to 15, from 25 to 15, that gives you that difference of 9, right? Well,
Yeah.
10.
It was 9,000,
We would
our budget
reduce
is
by 9.
9,000 more than we know people have requested without knowing what the rates are, for sure. And any new staff that would come.
So 10 would make it that 60.
Yeah.
We'd get a 65, which is 1,000 under what we know.
Okay.
How much had you budgeted last year?
It was 25 right, in this past budget, but I used all title and I used all of my improvement on instruction to cover. So I spent almost 70,000 this year.
Okay. So just 10.
And I said no to a lot of other PD and conferences just to do tuition.
Yeah.
Hence why I asked for 50 grand more.
Now you have the positions coming up because we're leaving this uniform reduction because we removed the other,
Yes.
okay? So now you have let's review the positions as you talk them out. We have the open EL ed tech position. We have the open special ed tech at the middle school. We have the nurse position at Libby Tozier. We have the half of the administrative assistant position, and we have the science position.
So
I'm trying to make it all on one page. Okay, there we go. Yeah? So thoughts on that?
Well, since they.
You're at
took out-
510 right now.
Take the
Go ahead.
uniform.
I guess I just wanted to, because again, at the beginning, you said that there's 3 unfilled ed tech positions. So I'm trying to wrap my head around how many total ed tech and then how these play a part in that total.
Yeah, so in reviewing this as we looked at it, we believe we can, with the reduction of another special ed tech, so there will be 3 ed tech positions we've reduced,
in special
still leaves 3 ed tech positions open
In special ed.
in special ed.
instead of 6.
Right, so we had 6, we still have 3, and 2 would be at the middle school and 1 at the high school.
So I don't know, like, Doug, if you're thinking the ELL ed tech That's different.
That's different.
So that's
Yes.
not, we're not talking about that in that group that we were originally had started with.
So if, I guess, to help me wrap my head around, is if those were cut from the budget, how many open ed tech positions there would still be 3?
Correct.
Special ed.
For
3
special ed.
Special ed.
Mhm.
The ELL, because it's different, would not fall under that umbrella.
And then general ed techs, do we have openings for that as well?
No.
Those are also.
No.
Those are all filled.
Mhm.
Okay, so the
I feel like we
open
should bring Nancy
special
up just to
ed
talk
at the
about
high school
impact.
counts as one of the 3.
Yes.
The high
Middle
school.
Special ed at the high
Yeah,
school.
special ed at the high
Special
school.
ed at the high school counts as one of the 3 unfilled
So
positions.
that would not be cut.
Correct.
On there.
But ed techs move for the needs of the students.
Right, I mean, Nancy and her department needs to put the ed techs where they need to be, but we had a lot of trouble hiring ed techs. And they're working on filling a couple of these vacant ones. So they know that they have 3 they can fill. They've already been told that. I'll talk about the EL position. Kathy really, when we look at all the positions, she put that's why it's first. She felt that one should go before the other ones.
And I agree leaving that in if we could move it down to where we have a need. The trouble is, ELL, if we all of a sudden have a need someplace, it could end up being an IEP and we'd have to get them somewhere. But that's probably special ed.
Right.
Nancy, do these ed tech cuts put staff in a lurch?
Nancy, you want to come to the mic, please?
Sorry, Nancy.
So these positions have been open last year too, and people survived. I mean, we met students' needs. Does it make it more challenging to do that schedule-wise? Yes, it does, but it is doable.
Leave it as a cut?
Yeah, leave it as a cut.
So now, yes, Doug?
Are our ELL rates comparable to like other districts and stuff?
No. Do you want, what's our population?
So,
Right, I think you're good. Kathy, could you come?
Yes, thanks.
I guess,
Thank you, Nancy.
You can give us a
so
percentage.
I feel like I might be being misconstrued. I guess, the ed tech, the special ed tech, we had 3 openings. She just said that 3 were open. We had some open last year.
Correct.
Is our pay scale comparable to other districts? Would it be something, do you think that having 3 open ones with a lower pay scale every year would be equatable to cutting it and then maybe spreading some of the pay to the other 2 or 3 positions to try to fill the 3 that we can budget?
They have contracts.
They have contracts,
It's a
so we can't play
negotiated
with that.
contract.
Okay,
And when we did their most recent contract, which is that we brought all those positions up to be comparable around, so we'd be competitive.
I guess I just wondered, when there's 3, she said there were 3 last year. I mean,
Right, I
thinking
think it's just,
financially, I'm just.
ed techs, that is a big, every district struggles to fill
Yeah.
those positions. And believe me, and if we have a really good substitute that meets the qualifications, those are often scooped up for those positions. So, I mean, it's just one that we're always looking, always networking. We put it on our Facebook thinking maybe we'll get a parent or parent knows someone or family. Do you want to talk, what's our EL population?
Yep, so every year we test the students in January, and we get their results, and that tells us what their need is in terms of the level of support. And so looking at the number of students, and so once they hit a certain level, they can get into monitor status and not need like direct instruction. And so we're very close at the high school to just be in the monitor status, where our population, where we have 3 students at Sabatis Primary, need direct services every single day.
Do they have everybody? That's why the high school is being transferred to.
Correct. Yeah.
And the ed tech line is 3 ed techs?
Just one.
Or just
No,
one?
it's just an additional,
Okay.
it's an open,
Just one
Yeah.
one open?
yeah.
Okay.
So your total's at $510,048.54.
I don't think we need to cut that much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the ELL will,
Yeah,
if,
maybe not.
if that's not budgeted in, ELL ed tech from the high school will transfer either way.
Right.
To Savannah's primary.
Well, right now I have an open position at SPS, so
Right.
I was
There's
reducing
2
one.
ed tech positions right now. If we cut this, it leaves just one, and that one's filled, so it will transfer to SPS.
So it just leaves the high school open, or
There won't be a position
Well, I mean, without.
without an ELL.
Without an ELL,
Because there's not a need there currently.
Mhm.
Currently.
All right,
Bless you.
so we're down past uniforms,
Yeah.
and we're down past at the box where we are now, reducing
Mhm.
the nurse position.
You might want-
What's everybody feel about that?
Yeah, because it's, I guess, not really a nurse that we're talking about. We're
Right.
talking about some ARP funded somethings that have been shifted around and moved between general and ARP.
Correct.
It makes sense to leave that number in
Yeah.
as a reduction,
Right.
even though it's down below, so I'm not quite sure why that wouldn't have been one that was way up at the top almost.
Now, the 188, isn't that still going to the bold line that hasn't moved?
Right.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
already
Mhm.
know where we are.
Yeah, so we're
Do
at
you
like
wanna drop it down?
250 easily.
Yeah, I can drop it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, drop it.
I think, Doug, what you're asking is
Right
the
there?
board in agreement it's 250 or somewhere in between? I don't think we were in consensus last time that it was 250. Because there was a lot of discussion on, is that going to be enough?
Did they ask us to cut 500, though?
Nobody asked us to cut anything.
Well, we were talking about the
The
people
May
from Litchfield
17th.
that decided that they had a number that they came up
They,
with. I
they
think it
had a
was the
number of
480.
450.
Right.
485.
Well, it was
485
485 with the 70,000 cut.
Right. So 485 was their original number.
I'm not gonna-
Once we cut the 70, it went down to 415 was their motion, right? But that included the 70 from special ed that we put back in before we started this. So that their number was 485 from what we had budget offered before.
You just came up with a number.
My question to throw out there is, if we put 250 and bring that to a vote, a town vote, if it passes, that's done. If it fails, what happens with that again?
We start
We'll be back on this list again.
We spend August here.
But in theory, that meeting should be simple, because we just have 3 more line items that we would have to visit,
If that's enough,
right?
right?
Yes.
If, in theory.
Yeah, in theory,
In theory, you have a plan, A, Plan B.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think we need to present $500,000.
I don't think so either.
No.
I look at it this way, we're not setting a number tonight. We're just discussing possibilities. The information really needs to go out amongst the community and say, here is what we would lose if the budget was reduced by the 250, or the number that was proposed, the 485, which is roughly 500. So that people in the community can give us the constructive feedback on what they're willing to see removed from the school budget, which would almost be just keep it the way it was and show the people that, although in essence, we're not really removing anything, we take workers' comp, because that's, or things that we bought this year that would be coming out anyway. So it's kind of like, if we were to reduce next year's budget, what are the things that we would take out to give a $250,000? Just for, not that that's the number, until we vote on what we're going to propose and send to the voters, it's discussion. And if people weren't satisfied with 250, this is what 500 would take. And then there's everything in between, right? Because then people could go and look and say, just what we just did.
Well, I think the big thing for anybody watching at home is that with what we've kind of cut is that this is like, at this point, we're not deciding to cut the high school position. The voters would be deciding to cut. So that kind of puts the power in the hands of the voters to cut the high school science position and the nurse position, because we, right now at 291, we're keeping those, right?
Well, remember, the voters give us dollars.
Well,
We elect where to spend it.
yeah.
All
I guess
right.
I'm just trying to itemize it a little bit for them that here's a budget where we get to have a high school science position and the nurse and the administrative assistant. And then if they vote against it, in theory, those would be the first things you would have to go at to get 500, in theory, for the next meeting. You know, we might go some other routes.
Right.
Just for anybody watching at home, that's kind of where we're at, right? With that.
So, in my mind, the way the taxpayers are going to look at it, they're going to see these numbers, and they're going to see what the impact is to the mill rate. And they're going to say, before we had a $500 increase for a $200,000 home, by cutting what they cut, we're going to have a $340 increase to a $200,000 home. Because that's what they're going to look at. They're not going to care about whether or not we kept a science teacher. They're not going to care enough, you know. They're going to say, what's the impact of my taxes? And with this number, I think we're going to be around a $300 increase per year for a $200,000 home.
For this year.
For this year.
Well, depending on how the town budget is, like,
Well, they've already set the
I
town budget.
understand that, but I don't, I feel like.
I know in my town, we get a 0 increase.
Yes.
Everything that's going to impact the taxes in Sabattis is a school budget.
Litchfield says 70% of their budget goes to the school.
Yeah.
Which is inaccurate. I know.
Yeah.
It's about 62.
Well, we don't have a police officer or anything.
But we still pay for
The
services.
So the question right now is you're at 291, 758 and 26 cents at line 48.
So if we put back the uniforms and special ed, it'd be about 250.
Put back the other uniform one? I mean, remove this one here? Yeah, it would.
So then you have, so
You go to 286.
And then if we wanted to put back that ed
5,000.
tech position. That gets us to 250, but part of me thinks 291 feels more palatable than 250.
I think that'd be more.
I don't know why.
Because 250 is like a number you pull out of your back pocket.
Right. That's true.
291 is a number that you had to work to get to.
That is true.
which you did.
Yes, I
Which you
remember
did have to
watching
work.
this meeting. But honestly, $5,000 for uniforms, I would be okay putting it back in the budget.
So would I.
So it'd be $10,000 for uniforms.
Yes.
Or put back, or we say 8,000, so put 2,000 back. I don't know. Or just leave it. I could go
You know,
either way at
a
this
couple,
point.
a couple thousand is not, and what you don't want to do is, you probably can't match current uniforms if you buy a new one, so you're buying field hockey, you
You
probably
gotta
have to
buy-
You gotta buy 'em all.
Yeah.
right? And you gotta buy them in enough quality that we don't
It'll
buy them
last.
in 2 years instead of 7 or 8 years. You know, which is always a catch-22. You know, I can go out to Timku or whatever that is, it keeps coming up on my phone, you know, when I'm playing games. And, you know, I'm sure they got them.
$2.50.
Yeah.
So, are we at 291, 758,
Or 286.
or 286?
I say
Put the uniforms, take the uniforms out of there.
Okay, 286, 758.
I think that's good.
So that would be the proposal that we could publish out, that this is what we're, just as the budget, we advertise what the budget was, this would be we either put out the budget that shows that it's this number, and if anybody's interested to see what the cuts are, we just make that as an attachment to the budget numbers.
What is the number, what does it look like if we put the nurse position in, if we leave it as a cut?
Okay, so the nurse, but.
No, it's not the nurse position, but that line, that 82.
Okay, so, just so, to be crystal clear, we have moved a nurse position out of ARP and put it into the general fund. So if that position goes back into ARP, then the 72,000 needs to go in the general fund. You will not have a nurse. You have to add another 90,000 or whatever number we pick, and if we're over or under, whatever, you would have to add that in.
Okay.
So you'd have to add the 72 plus the 95, you'd have to add in 150,000 or so.
Why did it jump up to 368?
Because Christie asked what it would be to add
Oh,
the
I
82
see.
in,
I'm
so I
sorry.
changed the formula to go down to that cell, go down to 49. So I can flip it back real quick.
Go for it.
That's what it was.
Do we think that's going to be palatable to the community?
That's what it would be.
So
We're
that,
going to have to sell it.
Right.
so then instead of the 1.1, we would do 874 and change.
So it went to 368 from, oh, yeah.
Because we're-
280.
I was just wondering.
I've
just
seen so
wanted
many
to see.
numbers, I can't even do the math.
I know.
So what would remain, let me be clear on this, the 82 is in the reduction list,
Yeah.
correct? So we got to move that line down to include the 82. That means you,
Is that what we want? I was just asking.
no, I'm trying to communicate, is, so you would like the administrative assistant position halftime to remain in the budget,
Yep.
and you'd like the science position to remain in the budget, right? Okay. So if you keep the 82,000, then, can you put that in? Then that would be your reduction. I'm just gonna play, that would be your reduction. And then you've saved those two positions, which were the high priority for the district. So you're supporting what we had put on the list.
And there's not an outlier, right? So like we looked at all the 2 priorities and we decided to eliminate all the 2s and not touch the 3s. If we don't touch the nurse position, if the nurse position was higher in the list, would we have drawn the, like I'm trying to figure out the rationale.
It's not a nurse, you have to
I know,
add,
I'm
okay, sorry.
It says nurse, so that's where my brain, that 82,000
Yes.
was last on the list. As a board, how did we make that decision? Because that's what people are going to ask us, right? So like, for me, the fact that it's a 2 priority from the district tells me I can cut the line between the 2 and the 3 and feel like it's equitable. That's where my thinking is.
Like, we would support the reduction of the open ELL, and we would support the reduction of the open special ed, right?
Yes.
And the use of ARP for the technology, which is what it really is.
Yes.
But there is a reduction of a nurse.
Yes, that is currently
Right.
not filled.
Correct.
It's an unfilled position.
Right, and really, it's mitigating what would happen next year.
Right,
It's going to happen this year, it's going to happen next year, or you're going to have to put it in.
right,
So you either put it in now or you put it in next year.
yes. So I'm in
See what I'm
favor
saying?
with having it be above the line. So we cut it.
Right, so we're at $368,758.26 for reduction. And you've had a really thoughtful dialogue around it, that you took it very seriously. It's not like you came in and just said, yeah, that sounds good, off we go. You really dove deep into it. And next meeting, July 12th, we'll publish this, we'll get this on Facebook, you can get it out, I'll make sure the town managers know it and all that. People can come to July 12th. It's a regular meeting, there'll be a public hearing. We'll be prepared that it's going to go at 368, that reduction, But if it's not, and we have to, we may have to be working in the background around, and we may have to take a recess while we get things done, or we have the July 19th as a backup, depending on the feedback on the 12th. So it doesn't have to be, so if you say to us, prepare the 368, 758, 26, knowing that you might have public input, then we go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I really, really appreciate
I got
this.
one more, I gotta beat this horse, breathe one more time. All right, so now that you opened up that line and you put more verbiage up there than what we had on our printout and what you were showing before,
Yes.
for the ARP 82,000, so when I look at it, it's used to cover technology reductions in the previous budget version. 10,000 savings for the nurse reduction and 72 hardware software.
Correct.
So how much, because we're offsetting it, right? I mean, we're putting some things back in, or we just move them to the ARP funds. So is the technology, hardware, and software going to ARP funds?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And the 10,000 savings for the nurse reduction?
Yeah, between the salary of the one in ARP and the salary of the Libby Tozier, there was a savings of 10.
All right, so we're not reducing.
benefits.
Yeah, we're not reducing the nurse position. We are moving $82,000 from ARP funds, or out of the budget into ARP funds.
And we're reducing a nurse position.
We're eliminating a grant-funded nurse position by doing this.
Correct.
Right, but we're talking.
That's the way to say it.
this
We're
document-
eliminating, I think writing it that way,
Yeah.
we're reducing the ARP-funded nurse.
You shouldn't talk about anything that's not in the budget. That nurse position is not in the budget because it's ARP, right? So you want to talk about what are you doing to the budget?
Right.
What you're doing to the budget is you're moving, doesn't matter how you're doing it, but you're moving $82,000 out of software, you're moving that into the budget, plus the
No.
10,000,
Okay, hold on.
72,000.
well, 72
Out.
hardware, but you got another
10,000,
10,000
okay.
savings to make up the 82, right? So what you're really doing is you restructured ARP funds to move technology and savings into ARP. For the $10,000 savings in the nurse is only a savings if that nurse was in the budget. She was in ARP. So if her salary was 92 and you're saving 10, that was 10,000 ARP, not in the budget.
No, it's.
Was she in the budget?
The other way around.
Swap, flip-flop. She was ARP.
She was ARP, so anything that you saved from her had no impact on the budget.
But what we're saying here is by eliminating the nurse position, it gives
don't
us
have
some
to fund it in the
flexibility.
budget.
There's
Well,
funds
we
in the
didn't have to
budget
fund
to
it
be
in the
able to
budget
pay
this
that
year either.
72
Without cutting them.
without cutting it.
It's like hiring a veteran teacher retires and you're hiring a new teacher, there's your savings, that's what that 10 grand is.
But the monies were in two buckets.
In the local budget.
In the local budget, then that nurse was not in our local
Ever.
budget. Ever.
Correct.
Right? So removing that position has no impact on the budget,
It does
right? Because it wasn't in the budget. If it wasn't in the budget number,
The person that's filling that position is $10,000 cheaper.
if that position was not in the budget, and you remove that, you cancel that position, that has no impact on the budget, right? But what it did is it freed up ARP funds, which are not in the budget, to go and move things that we had in the budget, or we had reduced from the budget, to move those in to be covered by ARP, which is still not in the budget.
I know what you're saying, Bob. In the general fund, there are 5 nursing positions.
Right.
We have 6 nursing positions because of ARP funds.
Right.
We will now have 5 nursing positions
Same ones we had in the
because
budget.
5, and then
Five.
we're going to 4 because we lost the ARP position. Yes, I hear what you're saying. Yep. So we will write, I absolutely know what you're saying, is we did not technically lose a general fund nurse position. That's what you're trying to communicate. So I hear you on that. It was the ARP nurse position that has been reduced. Absolutely. And so people are going to say, oh my gosh, we don't have a nurse at Libby Tozier now. they reduced that position. They did not fund it through ARP this year, therefore we don't have that position. That's how we need to communicate it. So we will rewrite that. I absolutely hear what you're saying. It is confusing,
So-
and we will make that clear. And you're right, it then freed up the money in the ARP to move technology money out.
Right, and that's the key,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause
Yes,
It's what
yeah.
impacted the budget numbers.
Correct.
Anything that does with ARP has nothing to do with the budget.
Yeah, yeah. It's all right. We'll work on the wording on that particular item.
So on this list, we are now gonna fund the administrative assistant position
Yeah,
and the open high school science position.
So you ought to change those to zeros.
Those should go to 0, right? So we can get it, so I wanna see a clean list.
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say that for right now. Just, it didn't update you?
Now the
Okay.
clock's moved back.
Okay, so so you want me to do, it didn't update. You want me to update? Let me do this, because you said you updated. Like that?
There we go.
No, it still didn't do it. Whatever you did.
Sort by the item
Okay.
amount.
Yeah.
No, we're good.
We're good now.
So that's our number, 368, 758,
Yeah.
20.
Right, as you said, if you sort by the item amount, then you get all the ones that are, that we zeroed out, and you
Yep.
remove them from the
Yep,
list.
so here's the list that we will
Those are
publish.
all cuts,
Take that yellow out of there.
Yeah, we'll take the yellow out.
right? Those are all things we're not
And
funding
you
in
wanna
the
remove
budget.
these two.
Right, Katie?
Yeah, we're gonna take off the bottom two. Do you wanna do that?
So
Update
it's
that.
actually even higher than the 291.
Yeah,
It's
368.
Yeah, it's 368, which I think might be more palatable.
I do too. And I think leaving the priority colors will be helpful for the
Yeah.
viewers.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they don't print out like this, and they all come out yellow.
Right, yeah.
Hopefully printer ink isn't the budget.
Kept talking about green, I said, "I'm feeling green."
All right, thank you, everybody, for your work.
Yes, thanks,
Hi.
everybody. I think we did a good job tonight.
Yes, definitely.
So we're back on July 12th?
Back on July
Back on
12th.
July 12th.
Okay.
And you'll have numbers,
Yeah, we'll
Or
get it all
assessment
ready as
and all
if this
that.
holds. Yeah.
yeah.
And then if we have to take a recess to fix everything, we can do. Okay, thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you.